Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. We want to thank you for coming to part 2 of Stopping Breaches for Govies. We will begin in just another minute or so. Okay, thank you everyone for coming. So this is the part 2 in Stopping Breaches for Govies. We spent much of last time speaking about adversaries and the evolution of cyber attacks, which we'll touch briefly on in this presentation in case you missed it. But the main item we're going to talk about today is what components make up next generation antivirus. And I just wanted to introduce you to today's speaker. We have Q, who is our systems engineer for state, local education, and healthcare. He actually left the Windy City of Chicago and is currently in Houston, but he spent about 12 years of experience in the IT industry, with the majority of that time in the cybersecurity field. And just a couple of fun facts about him. He turned his love of music into DJing on the side, and now he spends much of his time giving back to the community as a VP on the board of directors with St. Jude's. So Q, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Grace. So just to recap, just to give you an agenda for today's webinar, we're going to recap part 1. Then we'll move on to malware versus adversary. Then we will discuss what is next-gen AV. And then we'll also discuss finding the right NGAV technologies for your environment. And then we'll end it with any questions that should arise. So part 1, just to recap. In the last webinar, you learned what an adversary is. So just to recap, an adversary is a person or a group of people who seek to harm our interests. And in our case, they're looking to either encrypt our files and servers or exfiltrate our data. The challenge that most see on the other side is these advanced attacks are more intelligent, more motivated, and are being done by highly capable human beings. As you may see in the current threat landscape, cyber threats are rapidly evolving. Adversaries are succeeding at a much higher rate than ever before. You can see here, there's just some of the adversaries that we track. We have Fancy Bear, and you can see some of the damage that's being done here. You can see that healthcare and government are at risk because budget is so low. A couple of quotes before I kick it off. Sun Tzu, know thyself, know thy enemy, 100 battles, 100 victories. And a little quote from our founder and CEO, George Kurtz, you don't have a malware problem, you don't have an adversary problem. And that's how CrowdStrike was founded. So moving on, as you can see here from this brief slide, you can see that the type of attacks are shifting the landscape. Previously, we were dealing with a lot of malware. That's where your traditional AV came. Now, malware is still very important, and we do still need to take care of malware. But as you can see, adversaries are getting increasingly sophisticated, and they rely less on malware. In our latest global threat report, we showed that 51% of incidents that CrowdStrike responded to, meaning companies that got breaches, adversaries employed malware-free or fileless malware attacks, which included, but weren't limited to, insider threats, credential thefts, social engineering, and spear phishing attacks. Now, the whole industry has been focused primarily on malware, the AV guys, the sandboxing people. But we know that less than 49% of attacks use malware. And that only represents a small single step in the overall attack campaign. Well, what about the rest? How can CrowdStrike help you? Well, we can take care of all of that for you, the malware and fileless malware alike. We're going to be talking about the 1-10-60 rule here. So we talk about the new age of cyber attacks. It's here. What do? How do we prevent it? With the 1-10-60 rule, your security posture should enable you to allow you to effectively prevent an attack and remediate an attack. And CrowdStrike can help you do that with our Next-Gen AV platform. So what is Next-Gen AV? First off, Next-Gen AV is cloud native. To meet the challenge of today's sophisticated adversaries, CrowdStrike focuses on revolutionizing endpoint protection by creating an entirely new platform and architecture from the ground up. Protecting endpoints is critical because they are distributed and serve as users' interfaces to the enterprise environment. They also frequently store sensitive data and historically have been difficult to secure. Once an endpoint has been breached, adversaries can move laterally within your environment with relative ease, and they will quietly exfiltrate your valuable data and compromise your intellectual property for months, sometimes years, sometimes a lot of years without fear of detection. This is critical for an industry where dwell times average over in a year. Now, the CrowdStrike Falcon platform, we can uniquely unify 5 crucial security capabilities. First is the next-gen antivirus. Second is EDR. The third is IT hygiene. The fourth is 24/7 managed threat hunting. And the fifth is threat intelligence. Now, the integrated Falcon platform is built on a 100% cloud-native architecture, and everything is delivered via our single lightweight agent, which was designed for optimal effectiveness and performance. This innovative combination of solutions stops breaches by preventing and responding to all attack types, both malware and malware-free attacks. Unlike costly on-prem solutions, the cloud offers a nimble, extensible, and frictionless platform for delivering comprehensive protection across all government and healthcare entities, securing your data, your people, your assets, whether it be on or off the network. In addition, a cloud-based approach does so with lower costs and reduced management overhead, while offering significantly increased performance, agility, and scalability. So Next-Gen AV is simple. It reduces your time to value. Traditional cybersecurity solutions are often complex and difficult to manage. Many times they will have multiple agents, multiple clients, and multiple panes of glass. They can also have complicated deployments which can consume valuable time and resources before they're fully operational, which will dramatically reduce your time to value, and oftentimes you'll need to reboot. In contrast, the powerful CrowdStrike Falcon platform offers streamlined deployment that gets you up and running in a fraction of time without the need for a reboot. This means that not only can you be up and running sooner, but you can also be enjoying the full value of the solution from day one. With CrowdStrike, public sector entities realize immediate time to value because no hardware, additional software, or configuration is required. Because again, it's 100% cloud native. So the Falcon does not just rely on one technology to prevent attacks. Instead, we use an array of complementary and overlapping methods that provide the most comprehensive offering for AV replacement in this industry. You may often hear about it calling it multiple layers of defense. With our multiple layers of defense, the Falcon can protect you against known and unknown malware and malware-free attacks. We will also protect you from zero-day attacks. We will eliminate ransomware. We do not require any signature updates. The overhead is very minimal. There's no user impact, and we use less than 1% CPU overhead. We even offer full protection when you're offline with our on-sensor machine learning. For example, Falcon uses machine learning to protect against known and unknown malware. In fact, it provides better protection against unknown malware because it does not rely on signatures. And because it's signatureless, It also means that you do not require constant updates to be protected, and you can free up those resources for more important tasks. Blocking known bad will allow you to quickly weed out the obvious and not waste your resources on what's easy. But we also know that over half the attacks that lead to a successful breach did not use malware. Against those fileless attacks or malware-free attacks, Falcon will use exploit blocking and indicators of attacks, also known as IOAs. Both features will protect you and your infrastructure beyond malware. Exploit blocking is self-explanatory, but what makes us different is we watch and block the technique that is being used instead of the exploit itself. That is how we can stop even unknown or zero-day exploits. IOAs, or indicators of attacks, are the behavioral analytic features of Falcon. IOAs are so unique and so powerful that it's worth talking about them more in detail. So, using an example of hundreds of patterns of behaviors that we look for, all of this information is sent up to our threat graph database in the cloud. We like to refer to this as our community immunity. In an AI-driven architecture, fast access to data is critical, and that is exactly what you get from our graph database technology. Every day, we process more than 37 billion events, not million, but billion with a B, across our entire install base. And this number is growing exponentially as our install base grows. Capturing this much data gives us unrivaled fidelity. To be honest, our competitors aren't even close when it comes to understanding what's happening in your environment. Where things get really interesting, though, is when we use the data as feedback loop for our protection technologies. Artificial intelligence, for example, is only as good as the data that you train it on and the frequency that which you train it on. Our AI is incredibly effective because we can train on more data and retrain more frequently than anyone else in the industry. It's also important to note that this is not just a math game. These techniques need to have security and threat intelligence built into their core. CrowdStrike offers endpoint protection software, threat intelligence, and incident response services. All of these functions work together cohesively to ensure that our technology is informed by what is actually happening in the threat landscape. Without this knowledge, it is incredibly difficult to make an accurate protection solution, and why is so many of our competitors struggle with false positives, and other operational annoyances. Fundamentally, Threat Graph makes our AI better. And that is what enables us to do superior detection, prevention, forensics, and threat hunting for our customers. This approach is unprecedented in our industry, and is only possible if you build your solution from the ground up in the cloud. Legacy vendors and even next-gen players that are on-prem simply cannot handle this. So now, indicators of attack. Think of it as a predictor. This is what we are detecting on the intent of what the attacker is trying to accomplish. Whereas an IOC is evidence or indicator of compromise. So an indicator of compromise is often described in the forensics world as the evidence on a computer that indicates that the security of the network has been breached. How we process our IOAs. IOAs will allow us to identify patterns of behaviors that are malicious without relying on signatures or machine learning file analysis. Instead, we use the event stream processing to look at the behavior to determine if it's malicious or not. Our event stream processing is unique in the industry because it combines artificial intelligence, unparalleled security expertise, and industry-leading threat intelligence to both identify and block malicious activity. In this example, we see a process looking for all files on a system. Then it will delete backups and ultimately call on an encryption routine. Any security professional can identify this as ransomware. So we have taken that knowledge and packaged it up into an IOA so Falcon can automatically detect it and block it right away. This logic will block almost any variant of ransomware because they perform all of these actions in order to be successful. That was just one example of the hundreds of patterns of behaviors that we look for. All of this information is set up to our threat graph. That's an extra slide there. So next-gen AV is also powered by actionable threat intelligence. At the heart of every attack is human adversary, and threat intelligence will review the motivation and tradecraft to keep you one step ahead. At CrowdStrike, we recognize that there's a human behind every attack. If we understand their motivation, their skill, and their tradecraft, we can use this knowledge as our advantage and actually predict and therefore prevent any future attacks. This is a tremendous great game changer in our industry, and this is why we are focused so much on building the best intelligence team on the planet. In fact, this adversary-centric approach is why Falcon X is able to deliver threat intelligence that allows CrowdStrike to be associated to the adversary activity observed globally and what is seen on our customers' endpoints or in malware. And we track that back to known threat actors. Next-gen AV also enables speed. So next we'll talk about the importance of speed and what is a breakout. The breakout time is calculated by how long it takes for an adversary to move laterally within an organization once it initially gains access to your environment. Once they have moved laterally, then they can really wreak havoc and cause a lot of damage. They could encrypt your servers, which is old news for a lot of organizations. The new threat we are dealing with today is privacy compliance. The adversaries will start to exfiltrate the data, and then they will send it back to their CNC servers and then demand payment, or else they will leak this information. Imagine you are a hospital and someone steals all of your PHI and leaks it to the public. Think of the repercussions. The HIPAA fines will amount in the millions. Think of your loss of revenue as your reputation is damaged. This is why we developed the 1-10-60 rule. Within the 60 minutes, within the first minutes, CrowdStrike's platform will allow you to detect in 1 minute. With our tool set, we will allow you to investigate the detection within 10 minutes. And then in a total of 60 minutes, we will allow you to, or enable you to respond and to remediate a threat within 60 minutes. Why is this rule so important? Because response takes so long. In addition to these challenges that are listed, there are a lot of challenges that organizations face: being understaffed, being undertrained, alert fatigue. Many organizations face this problem when you train somebody and then they leave for another job, in addition to what I've shown here on the screen. Now, think to yourself, what is the average breakout time within an organization? The answer is 2 hours and 43 minutes. And again, the breakout time is defined as the time it takes for an adversary to move laterally within your environment once they have gained access to your environment. 2 hours and 43 minutes. Now, because of our threat intelligence, we have been tracking many adversaries, and we actually have this slide here to show you how swift the adversary is moving. Now, the spiders, those are your e-crime activists. It takes them on average 9 hours and 42 minutes to move laterally within your environment. The kittens, those are the Iranians. They take about 5 hours and 9 minutes. The pandas are from China. They are about 4 hours. Kolima is the North Koreans, and they average about 2 hours and 20 minutes. And then finally, we have the bears. The bears are the Russian hackers that we've been seeing all in the news, and their breakout time is a little over 18 minutes. So just think about that. The average breakout time is 2 hours and 43 minutes. The Russians are doing it in 18 minutes. Our tools will allow you to respond to 1-10-60 here, so we can effectively find them within your organizations. While there are other ways to assess adversaries, CrowdStrike believes this is one of the more effective proxies for their operational aptitude. You could rank them based on sophistication of malware or the number of zero-day exploits they employ, but you may not be getting the real story since those capabilities can be acquired or stolen. A lot of adversaries, they're renting out their tradecraft now, and you could rent their ransomware and CNC servers for a commission paid to the developers. So the next gen AV, we are essentially redefining security. We want to ensure that you get better protection, better performance, better time to value. Organizations who are successfully defending against modern threats are looking to the cloud and AI to make it work. And CrowdStrike is leading the pack. CrowdStrike is redefining security for the cloud era with a security platform for all workloads built from the ground up to stop breaches. With CrowdStrike, our customers can benefit from better protection, better performance, and immediate time to value delivered by our cloud-native Falcon platform. What to look for in a next-gen antivirus solution? Now, many companies may claim to be next-gen, but you as the consumer will need to confirm these attributes to verify that they are indeed a true next-gen AV player. So the first thing they need to have is they need to have known malware prevention. The second thing is they need to have is machine learning. The third is exploit mitigation. The fourth is whitelisting and blacklisting of hashes. And then finally, indicators of attack. An effective next-gen AV solution will use all of these innovative technologies to prevent the rapidly changing tactics and techniques and procedures, also known as TTPs, used by adversaries to breach organizations. This will include commodity malware, zero-day malware, even the more advanced malware-free attacks. Now, CrowdStrike, we have set the new standard in endpoint protection. Since our inception, we have not had any reportable breaches where our sensors have been deployed. But you don't have to take our word for it. Look at third-party testing. CrowdStrike has become the industry's leading endpoint protection solution, and this has been constantly validated by industry analysts, independent testing organizations, and security professionals. If you're looking for a solution that has been tried, tested, and proven, then CrowdStrike is just for you. Nobody else has this level of industry validation. We have truly separated ourselves from the players in this very crowded market. Industry analysts such as Gartner and Forrester and IDC, we have been marked as leaders in several verticals. If you look at Gartner Peer Insight, these are reviews from people like you, customer base, that have used our product, has been validated as using our product, and has made true feedback to the platform. We score a 4.9 out of 5 on both EDR and endpoint protection platform from our customers. And then you can look at third-party testing, AV Comparatives, SC Labs. They have tested our ability to stop malware and exploits. We consistently outperform legacy AV solution in these tests in terms of efficacy, and especially in terms of false positives. The MITRE test is the true EDR test. It emulates real and advanced attacker activity and reports our ability to detect or block the adversary across the MITRE attack framework. We are proud to say that we were the first company to be validated against the MITRE attack framework. SC Media does an annual roundup of endpoint security solutions, and based upon their technical evaluation, the CrowdStrike Falcon earned 5 stars and was the only named solution that was named a Best Buy in 2018. Some other awards and recognition CrowdStrike has received, many awards. We won 2 years in a row, SC Awards, Best Security Company, CNBC's Disruptor, and the Forbes Cloud 100 list. You could see all of our testing results, award, and industry recognition at www.crowdstrike.com, y-crowdstrike-industry-validation. Now, just to remind everyone, Gartner does not endorse any vendor, product, or service depicted in its research publications and does not advise technology users to select only those vendors with the highest rating. Gartner research publication consists of the opinions of Gartner research organizations and should not be construed as statement of fact. Gartner disclaims all warranties expressed implied with respect to this research, including warranties of merchantability or fitness for a particular purpose. So next steps here. We do have additional series within this webinar. The next one is a new era of cybersecurity know-thy adversaries. That was the first one. Then this one is what components make up next-gen AV. And then next up will be why is next-gen endpoint protection better than traditional. Now there will be a link that will be provided where you could download the ebook. You will also be provided a link that you could download the 2020 CrowdStrike Global Threat Report. And you could always reach out to us at psmarketing@crowdstrike.com. Now, I thank everyone for their time. Are there any questions?
Thank you so much, Q. We do have a couple questions. So just a reminder that you can submit your question to us on the side, but I have a couple already. So the first one was, do you do signature-based scanning?
So good question. We do not employ any scanning at all. That is another characteristic of next-gen AV. And the thought process is if a file is malicious and is just staying dormant, there is no need because there's no activity going on. We actually, and next-gen AVs actually look at the process execution. Once that malicious file is executed, we'll look at the behavior patterns, and if we see that it mimics or has attributes of any malicious file, then we'll actually kill that process dead in its track. So there is no need for any signature-based scanning. Thank you for that question, by the way.
Thank you. All right, and I do have two other questions here. Is data sent real time into the cloud?
Yes, it is. As long as you have a stable internet connection, we could process information within 200 milliseconds.
And last question I have here. How many agents does your solution require?
That's a very good question. So if you're running a supported Windows operating system, you will only require one agent. The same goes for Mac. Now, we also support Linux, and it will depend on what version of Linux. They will have a couple different agents. But to give you an idea of your traditional AVs, they often require multiple agents depending on your operating system. For instance, one of the last companies I worked for, Windows 7 would have its own agent. A Windows server would have its own agent and client. If it was an Exchange server, it required a totally different agent and client. If it was a SQL server, it also required a totally different agent and client. So with CrowdStrike, we aim to make it as easy as possible. We don't care what Windows operating system you're running, as long as it's supported. You will only require one agent, so that gives you more time to focus on other security gaps rather than worrying about managing all the different agents and clients.
Awesome, and we actually had another question pop up. So this question asks, does CrowdStrike endpoint protection have device control?
Very good question. Yes, we do. That is one of the features we added within the last couple years. We do have the ability to create rules that will either allow you read-only access, read-write access, or total block of USB devices. You could block printers, portable DVD burners. We also give you the ability to block Bluetooth devices.
Great, thank you so much, Q.
Thank you very much.
Looks like that's it for questions. So we hope to see you all in the finale in just 2 weeks. If you haven't already, this webinar is based on the book. Again, we will be sending that link out. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, everyone.